Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us in between and before your Halloween celebration. And also before, evidently, most of Kansas will be engulfed in maybe bad weather today, as if we haven't had maybe a little bit already. So we've got a couple of important items to take care of today. And thank you for participating in the last couple meetings in particular, as you've made great progress toward the recommendations to the state board. So at this point, I will turn it over to our co-chairs, Ava and Brian. It's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Watson. Again, we appreciate everybody being here today. This meeting should be, like we talked about last week, relatively short. Everybody should be hopefully out the door and on the way home well before any bad weather takes shape wherever you're at. We left off last week with getting through motion 22, and we are going to revisit. We're going to look at motion 23. If you have that document on your computer and you have that pulled up, you're going to notice that there are multiple options. There's an A, B, C, D, E, F, and G option on that one. So we've put that to you guys last week, and several of you felt like it would not be appropriate to jump on that one real quick at that time and try to finish that up. So we're going to spend a little bit of time going through that particular motion real quick, and then we will get in the business of wrapping it up pretty quickly after that. Eric, is there anything you'd like to say?
Brian, could I just, maybe
Yes.
Peyton or Gabby could put that up on the screen for
Absolutely.
everyone so we could follow like last time? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Peyton, right now, we're just seeing a black screen from you. There we go.
Okay, do we have it now?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah. Okay, do we have any motions for this particular motion? I know there's kind of a lot. I won't read it through to you guys, but if you want to take a second and somebody would like to make a motion on something that they're passionate about with this.
Yes, I do, and Brian called on me, so I'm going to go ahead and make my motion for option B.
Okay. We have a motion for option B.
No, I'm sorry. I know it's hard to tell the difference sometimes. I said D, meaning D for David, D for dog.
Okay, gotcha.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood you on that one.
No,
okay,
that could have been me. There's a little background noise here,
that's
so
all
my
right.
apology.
It's all right. I've been accused of being hard of hearing in the past. So, okay, we have a motion for option D. Do we have a second? And again, please raise your hand if you have a motion for, or sorry, a second for this motion. Danny, I think I see your hand there. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Okay, so we're going to open this up for discussion for 5 minutes. And Melanie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Brian. I really appreciate the spirit of this. I just want to point out that as a parent, I have been through this process with my district, and I think that there may be some technical challenges with this. And so just for the group, I want to set some expectations that while this is something that I would love to see happen and I would happily vote for it, I don't know that districts are necessarily going to be able to easily comply with this request. And I don't know if we still have any of our IT and technical professionals on, or perhaps superintendents, but those who work in districts and know exactly what the software options look like, I would encourage them to speak now. and kind of get on the record so that when this goes to the state board, they can kind of hear the larger universe of what it might take to make this happen. So like I said, I love the spirit of this idea. I'm not sure if it's technically feasible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Tana.
I know that in our district, whatever means we use for students to access their, either it is, the platform we use for classwork and homework, or the platforms we use for testing or tracking grades, any of those things, they do have built into the software is the parent component, and the software is built for the parents to access something different or see something different than the students. So a lot of times it's not even the district's choice, it's how the software is formatted. And so, and we clearly, because of, the contracts and buying the licenses and all those things, you can't necessarily make a parent a student, and that would be the only way they could have the student view of some of that stuff. And so I know that that is one of the, like Melanie said, that's one of the technical issues that we have come across, is that it's not possible in the platforms. There's no platform that, there's no way for it to happen in the platform.
Okay, Tanya.
I was actually going to say very similar to what Tana did. That is an issue, depending on, I'm not exactly sure what you would be looking for here. If you want to log in so that when you log in the computer, you see exactly what the student does. You always can have your students log in and see that information. But it would, again, depend on what the expectation is around this. And I am not an IT expert by any means, so I don't want anybody to think I am.
Okay, let's hear from Brian and then from Erica, and I think Danny's got his hand up as well. So we'll hear from Brian and then Erica and then Danny.
Yeah, just one other thing to keep in mind, that sometimes there's privacy concerns as well. If there's group projects going on and students are interacting with each other's work, sometimes there's a concern with folks who are not students to have access to other students' work. So anyway, it's another thing to keep in mind, along with the limitations that have already been brought up.
Sure. Okay, Erica and then Danny.
I will say I am also not an IT professional. And having said that, I will also say that I have been a remote professional since 1998. And so what that means is I do have a pretty good working knowledge of many different types of technology. I also co-owned a business that required very unique cutting edge technology as part of our unique offering. And so I've also been a parent in the district trying to kind of access what I want to be able to see. So definitely reiterating the spirit that there shouldn't be anything that students have access to that parents don't. I agree. Tanya makes a good point. Of course, I've always, worked with my kids and used their logins, but the idea that a parent would have a different login that has different views, and oftentimes those views are less. That's the problem. If the views were more or better, it would be a different discussion, but it's very doable. And the districts have the leverage in negotiating with software companies. I don't think privacy is an issue either, because if parents can use their students' login, then, I don't see where people are going to have privacy issues there. I mean, so
Okay.
I think all of the things are all easy to, let's not say easy. They're all very workable. And there's no reason why the parent login cannot mirror the same access that the student has to see every assignment, every quiz, every extra thing, every email, every message board, etc.
Erica, I hate to cut you off, but for the sake of time, I am going to request that we add one more minute on the timer just so that we can get Danny and John's feedback as well.
You know, if we're going to do this and the parents don't have the same access as their child, me personally, I would have a really problem with that. Then there's the trust thing in there. If they don't have the same way to get into the computer as their child, actually they could use their access, but that's another issue, them taking it home also.
Okay, thank you, Danny. And John, we'll hear from you now.
Few issues here. So I was going through mine. What we use as a district, and we use Go Guardian. Just looking at some of the limitations, just from the parent side. As a parent, what you can see in our software is you can see browsing history. You can set internet controls outside of our school hours. You can configure filter settings on those devices, and you can see how the teachers in the school have guided browsing. So like what we block, don't block. So that's kind of the limitation of ours. Like as a staff member, I can see screens, but I don't think that's a possibility with our current software. And I think we've had that with several softwares. So it's just my take.
Okay. All right. Thank you, John. We've had our motion, second, and discussion. So we are going to go ahead and put this one to a vote. So you should see a poll appear on your screen here in just a moment.
And once again, if you're having any issues with your voting, please make sure to let us know. But in a couple minutes, we'll check out what the result was. We'll go ahead and do a last call on this. Did anybody not get to vote on this motion? Awesome. It looks like that motion, I believe, did not pass due to the majority needed. So we're going to go ahead and circle back and see if anybody else would like to make another motion or amend the one that was proposed.
Kim.
Thanks, Brian. I would like to move option E, recommend districts develop systems where parents can easily manage and request additional blocked sites.
Okay, we have a motion for option A. Do we have a second on option A?
That was E.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at option A on my screen, so I apologize about that. My apologies. We have a motion for option E. Do we have a second for option E? Amy.
I second option E.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We're going to go ahead and open it up for discussion, and we're going to try very hard to stick within the 5-minute time frame if possible. Okay, Danny?
Yeah, I have a real problem with this one because based on being on the local board for 16 years, when you go through a process, the process takes forever to get through. And then this is one of all this stuff we're doing right here. This is one of those things where each school district should be able to make their own recommendation, and the parents should be very involved in this, because that request is a no, 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 no. Having been on the local board and been through processes where you want to get information.
Thank you, Danny. Kim?
So I've had this happen in my district where one of my children was spending an excessive amount of time on YouTube, something that we weren't allowing in our own home, yet they went to school and could spend hours on that site. So it took a lot of effort and to get the district, a year of effort to get the district to block that site. And when they did it, they didn't only block YouTube, they blocked other things. So it made it really challenging. So I think it's really important that if there are sites that the school is allowing that are actually disrupting the learning of your student, that they should have the option, families should have the option to have them blocked.
Okay, Melanie.
Kim covered part of what I was going to say. We are in the same district, and so I imagine we've had kind of some similar experiences. I will point out that in that district, the students can submit a help desk ticket that goes directly to IT. So if there is a site that they're trying to get access to and they can't because for whatever reason the software has automatically blocked it, but it's something that they feel would be useful for learning, they can put in a help desk ticket and that will be reviewed. Similarly, if a site is accessible that should not be because of questionable content, the only way that I know of right now is to submit a help desk ticket, but as a parent, I can't do that. And so I like the wording of this, that parent requests to block sites, recommending for districts to develop a system where parents can easily manage and request additional block sites. I think that that's the key, is just having that access to the district that's easy, that's communicated clearly on the website. And then, to Mr. Zach's point, yes, it can be hard to work through kind of the red tape that comes along with that and going through the process. But I think it's important to have that portal or that email address or whatever available on the school district's website. And then from there, they can figure out how they want to handle it. Thank you.
I just want to add in, so after reviewing the last vote from KSDE, that vote actually did pass since we cannot count the absentees in that vote. So those are my apologies, but it did go ahead and pass.
Okay. All right, so our apologies on that. It looks like option D did pass, so we will go ahead and move forward with option D on motion 23. Okay, thank you. Again, our apologies on that. One thing that came up briefly in discussion last week was revisiting motion 14. A lot of our items are mutually exclusive. For example, if you choose one option, it negates another option. I know that there was a lot of interest in moving through option 14, looking at some of these, and I know that there was a bit of a feeling from several of the committee members that all of these, or again, maybe I'm speaking, putting my own take on it, but there was a benefit of all of those being considered as recommendations. So, Mr. Githens, are you there? I don't know if you want to go ahead and kind of state what you were kind of thinking there last week.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am not sure if this is a part of the process that's permissible. I don't know if those that made the original motion to that particular item would friendly those other options as a rider to that motion they had. That's merely my observation, was that anecdotally I didn't see very many people that seemed in opposition to those additional options for that subject.
And Brian, I will point out in the chat, some people were asking the same question about number 23 as well. As the same question about number 23 is what we were discussing on 20.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Peyton. Okay, so I'm going to kick it over to KSDE. What are your thoughts on the possibility of looking at some of those items on 14 as an additional recommendation, not necessarily not necessarily amending the motion, but is that something that we can do, KSDE?
Sure. So I think when we grouped the topics together, we wanted to make sure that the members were able to see all of their options at the same time. Some of them did contradict each other, so that clearly would not be great to vote on both of them. It seems to us that on both of the topics that the group is currently discussing, so item 23 and then the item that we discussed last week, those are not mutually exclusive. So if it's the will of the members, it seems to us as staff that more than one of those items could be voted on separately. My recommendation too, just to keep things simple, wouldn't be to amend the original motion since that already passed. I think perhaps the cleanest way would be to introduce a new motion on a separate item.
Okay, and Peyton, could you look at our notes? Was that number 20?
You may want, as you go back and look at number 20, since you're already on 23 and you have a motion on the floor that isn't necessarily contradictory to the one that just passed, you may want to go ahead and take a vote on that and finish out 23 and then go back to 20.
Guys, 23 is done. We've done the process and it's done. We don't.
Okay, so let's go ahead and discuss our motion for 23E. Is there any discussion on that? Danny?
This is a perfect example of why we need to let the local districts decide what they want to do. Because now we're making a mess of everything, but we're going to go back and put all these amendments or different motions in there. So we don't, I hate it that we don't make things simple. You know, this is supposed to be about screen time and mental health, and when it's still about personal devices. I really, we need to let the local districts make their own thing. And we can send all the information to them and they can do with it what they want. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other discussion on this motion? Erica?
Yes, I don't think that this is moot. This is moot. So the first motion passed. There shouldn't be any discussion on this, and there certainly shouldn't be a vote on it. And we need to stick to the process or we're out of integrity here.
John?
I guess this is the piece I'm struggling with on all of them. But no matter how you feel, basically what we just chose for 23 is that parents can see what their students see, not that parents can request that we block something, not that parents can have additional insight in of the oversight. So I think no matter which side of this fence you maybe fall on right now, I feel like we painted a base coat that didn't solve any problems because we didn't address, some of our higher ones there, like parental access. We recommend the school work with parents to ensure they have full access to their child's device when they're home. You can see it, that doesn't mean you have access. If you look at working together to create those policies to ensure you have those devices and that process, I feel like while I'm with Danny on this, I feel like something that should have been simple and made complicated. We should have differentiated exclusive amendments or exclusive options from non-exclusive options. And so we went through this process and chose one. And when we get to something that should be multiple ones together, it's hard as a group to say, hey, I want to put A, B, C, or whatever it is together. And I think that's why we're at a place where, you know, I love the spirit of some of these things. I just don't know if I don't feel like our recommendations are wholehearted and hit a recommendation of, we don't just want our parents to see it. We want our parents to have input. We want our parents to have access to that device when they're home, not just see the device, but have access, can get on it, log on it, control it, those kind of things. So
Thank you. Amy, do you have something to say?
When I'm looking over and after what John just said, I'm not sure I've got a bunch to add. I was going to say that I don't think the different points necessarily contradict each other, which is why it seems like it might be open for continuing the discussion on that part of the recommendation. And if we can't do that, what is the, Peyton and Gabrielle, are there any other options then for the different recommendations that are still within number 23?
So I think to answer your question, Amy, is that the co-chairs had said that they think that because these are not mutually exclusive, that we could potentially have option D, which passed, but also pass, for example, option E, because those two don't contradict each other. In several of the motions that we've done before, option A would have contradicted option B. This one, it wasn't necessarily the case. It was just that all of them were kind of within the same category, which is why they were grouped together like that.
Okay, Amy, did you have?
Yeah, so then I am confused with so are we going to continue to vote then on option E with 23, or I'm not sure where we are now with the process because of how the conversation's going.
No, that's a fair point. And I apologize. I think one of the things that we were wanting to do was just trying to have the ability to cover all of the necessary bases as much as possible to put forth the most robust recommendation. There was no intent to muddy the process. So I will take ownership of that and apologize for that. And you know, in keeping with the integrity of what we're doing, I think we can go ahead and just let the motions stand as we made them. And from there, we can move forward with looking at the draft recommendations that we have come out from KSDE. So again, I apologize. It was no intent to muddy the process or to alter the process. My sole desire is simply to put forth the best possible recommendation that covers as many bases as humanly possible for a robust recommendation.
Mr. Chair, could I make a suggestion?
Yes.
I do recall last week or the week before, some member asked, can I make another motion in this area? To which, if I remember correctly, you replied, if we have time at the end, but I want to hit all of these. So there was a statement kind of made, this idea that there could have been, but there wasn't. Perhaps the task force could vote if they're done, or if they want to allow that as part of the process so they can keep the integrity of the rules, and a majority vote would allow it to continue or to be done, so that kind of, again, you have a judicious way of going about stuff, or you could just call it. Just a suggestion.
Okay. Thank you, Jake.
Brian, I've got my hand up.
Yes, Erica.
While I appreciate the last suggestion, doing that at the very end when we haven't done that all the way along
I don't think makes a lot of sense. And obviously no one here is going to want to start over from the top. So I think the window for that has already closed.
Would anybody like to make a motion to go back on the recommendations that we can vote on? Or if not, we can just leave it. But if anybody has that motion, you can go ahead and make it now. So to look back on, especially numbers like 20 and 23 that do not contradict themselves, and see if we would like to vote on those as a task force.
Can I ask a clarifying question, Ava?
Yeah.
Sorry, I had a weird pop up there. Are you making a motion, or is the motion that we would go back over all the different items that have options that could be paired together that don't necessarily contradict each other, that we would go over all of them from the top?
No.
Okay.
We were simply, the question, like Jake said last week, was there was a question on number 20 if we could revisit that as a group once we got through all the motions, and we simply said at that time we would revisit that. So what we are asking right now is, do we want to expand on number 20 and take additional items in there as a new motion, and on number 23 take those additional items as a new motion? Those will be the only two items that we would address in this fashion. So if we have a motion and a second, we'll do that.
Well, on what basis are we doing that only for these two? Hey guys, on what basis?
So we decided that based on, because those were the two that members commented on that they felt needed the most votes. And then of course, this would be voted on the whole assembly if we would want to continue to look back on those. Kim, do you have any discussion or anything to say?
I was going to make the motion that we go ahead and be able to discuss the other items on both 20 and 23.
I second.
Is there, I'll go ahead and ask the KSDE staff and Brian, will we discuss this motion or just go ahead and make a vote?
Okay. Danny, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Brian. If my humble opinion is, if we're going to start doing this, because it seems like to me we're rushing through all this stuff, we should go clear back to the beginning and start all over and go through things. Because it just seems like, you know, we're trying to add things, which is typical in our legislature. They add, and then we have a mess. And I'm a simpleton, so the simpler we can keep things with no gray area, it sure makes it easier. But it seems to me that we're rushing here when we should need to go back. Maybe if we're gonna start doing this, then we need to go back and start all over. And maybe this task force doesn't make any recommendation this year. It's next year, because there's a whole bunch of stuff here. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Danny.
Is there any other discussion? So if not, we're going to go ahead and pull up the voting poll for this motion. So what we are voting on is if you would like to go back and make more motions on specifically on motion number 20 and number 23. And that would not include any other motions, just those two, number 20 and number 23. So we'll go ahead and get that poll pulled up. And again, if you have any trouble, please let us know. Okay, we'll go ahead and do a last call on that motion. If you haven't been able to vote, please raise your hand. Erica, were you able to get your vote counted? Okay, that
No.
motion.
No, I never got a vote thing. I never got a vote pop-up option.
Okay, send
Okay.
your vote to via chat to Gabby or Peyton, please.
There were 4 abstentions, so the total ended up being 19 votes with 11 voting in favor.
Okay, thank you, Gabby.
So we'll go ahead and start with number 23, since that's what we were on. And we'll go ahead and just start from scratch. We already know that D passed. So we'll go ahead and see if there are any new motions to be made on this specific motion. Kim, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, I'd like to reinstate and move for option E, recommend districts develop system where parents can easily manage and request additional blocked sites. Thank you.
Okay, Constance, do you have a second?
I second that.
Okay, we'll open it up for discussion. Remember, raise your hand so we can call on you. Lane, you had your hand up.
I raised my hand a second.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, Erica.
I make a motion to reopen all of the different items and treat them the same way, or vacate this discussion so that the process is in integrity for the entirety of what we're doing here.
I will second that motion.
We're still in discussion on this item.
Do we have any other discussion on this item at hand?
Sue?
It seems to me that no matter what option we have here, The recommendation really is from the group that we would like to have more parental control or oversight. And as you are making your recommendations to the board, I think the intent of our group here is that we would like to see more parental oversight and that school boards can figure out what that can look like. I don't think you're going to actually say in your recommendations that parental access is going to exactly mirror the student view. I think basically we're saying as a group, we think that parental control or access to the computers is very important.
Okay, Travis.
I'm troubled just by how this process has turned, and I'm sorry to have been maybe partially to blame for the cause of that with item number 20. In my mind, they did not seem to be contradictory to each other nor conflict, whereas many of the other items were in confliction. I will vote no on this motion and motions to extend simply because, and I will not put forth a motion on item 20, partly because I do agree with Mr. Zek in that this issue has become convoluted, and I believe that we need to stay consistent with this. So just making my vote known on that. Thank you.
Okay, Danny, you have your hand up. Okay, no comment, Danny? Okay.
Is there any other discussion on this motion? Oh, Danny, do you want to go now?
Yes, thank you. I really like what Sue said. She's very good at what she said, and I wish I could use words as good as she did. I thought it was very good.
Okay, so since we voted on continuing to look at motions in this process, we'll go ahead and vote on the one at hand. Lane, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, is it going to be possible for members of the task force to make a motion that we reconsider more options following our votes on numbers 20 and 23?
No, we're going to stop after 20 and 23, Lane.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and vote on the motion proposed, which is motion E, that we recommend districts develop a system where parents can easily manage and request additional blocked sites. So that would be in addition to what we voted on for motion D. So we'll go ahead and let that pop up. And again, if you're having trouble voting, please let us know.
I'm not clear on what we're voting on because I have a motion that was seconded that hasn't been voted on yet. So I'm not sure what it is we're voting on.
So the reason we didn't vote on your motion yet, Erica, is because we are already discussing on the specific motion of number 23. And since we had already voted to go ahead and look back at that, we'll do that. And then if you want to make the motion after voting on this one or when we're not on a current subject, you can go ahead and do that.
Okay, it's already been made and already been.
Sorry, we should see the results of the poll here in just a moment.
It looks like that motion did pass. So we'll go ahead and continue to look at this motion. Does anybody else have any other recommendations on motion number 23? Kim?
Yes, I'd like to move option F. Recommend districts allow parents to set stricter controls if desired on their students' school issued device. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second on that?
Constance?
I'd like to second that, please.
Okay, do we have any discussion on this motion? Amy?
Hey, just we're on C, right? Usually you guys highlight along the way, so I'm making sure I'm speaking about the correct one. When I've had access to my kids' iPads and district devices, one of the pieces that's really missing is the how long they're using them, because some of the different monitoring devices, for instance, like, sorry, my dog's barking, like securely. Sorry, some of the devices like securely will tell you which sites are accessed, but not how long. And so, gosh, let me get his ball. 1 second, guys. I know that's unprofessional, but. All right, I'll just be real fast. The duration is really important because sometimes it will record which sites they go to, but not necessarily how long they're spending on the sites. And I would like to see the districts tend to that little issue. It'll help manage their device time better. Thanks.
The motion was for F on that, I believe. Is that correct, Kim?
Yes, that's correct. I made a motion on F and Connie seconded it. F.
Thank you.
Do we have any other discussion? Erica?
Was my hand up? I didn't mean to have it up. I must not have lowered it. Sorry.
That's okay. Sue, do you want to go ahead?
So I'm just asking a question. So all three of these recommendations, if F is passed as well, all three of these recommendations would be in the document.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so sorry, it's raining here where I am. I'll try to be loud, but we're gonna go ahead and reconsider Erica's motion. That just so we can make sure everyone's voice is heard. So we're gonna go ahead and reconsider her motion, and we'll go ahead and vote on that now.
Ava, should we finish up? Should we go ahead and vote on that item that was up first and then reconsider, or then vote on Ava's motion?
Sure. Yeah,
So
let's go ahead and do that.
Let's put F to a vote real quick, and then we will go back to Erica's motion and Jackie's second, and open that up for discussion about continuing. So let's go ahead and put F to a vote, and then we will go to Erica's motion. Lori, are you having trouble voting?
No, what I was going to say is technically the motion that was on the floor first was Erica's. And so we should have voted on that first because that is what we were voting on. So
I'm sorry. I thought
no. So we need to either resubmit that poll and state what we're voting on. But because that motion was voted or seconded, Erica's was on the floor before this one. So we're not following proper procedure.
You're correct. My apologies.
So I think we need to just take this one off or state what we're actually voting. I mean, we have to vote on hers first.
Okay, let's go ahead and, Ava, you were correct. My apologies. Let's go ahead and get Erica's item voted on. Erica, could you restate your original motion that you made just a moment ago? Just restate that, and then we will vote on that.
Yes. The motion is to have the ability to revisit any of the different items and sub options to be able to add on to what's already passed, or at least vote for that possibility, or to render moot doing that with just 20 and 23. So the motion is to be consistent in the process for all items and not treat some items as special.
Okay, is there any?
Seconded that? Is that correct?
Sorry, Brian, do we have a second on this motion?
I believe Jackie seconded. Is that correct, Jackie?
That's correct.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and put that to a vote.
Do we have any oh, perfect. As always, please be sure to raise your hand if your vote, or if you didn't get a poll for that vote, and we'll make sure to let you know, or get your vote counted for you. Yes, Lane.
Could it please be restated what we're voting on? I was a little confused with Erica's wording.
So, Gabrielle just put it in the chat, but we're currently voting on whether to reconsider motion 23 as well as other motions for clarification. That was what Erica originally made. So we're going to go ahead and vote on that.
I did actually have a second part to that. The second part is that we would not, it's an all or nothing. We're doing it right. We're doing it for all items, or it's going to be moot and take away what we're doing for 20 and 23. So it's either going to make the process consistent. So we're either going to do it for all and revisit other ones, or we're not going to, we're not going to continue with this and count what's been done here, because these two are being treated out of process and treated differently.
Thank you, Erica. Lane, did you have anything else to add to that?
I just want to ask for clarification on order of events. The first, I believe it was Kim made a motion that we should go back and reconsider motions 20 and 23, correct?
I believe yes.
And then after that, someone made a motion to add something to 23. And in the middle of discussion, Erica's question or motion was proposed in the middle of discussion without completing our vote on an additional amendment regarding the options in 23.
Yes.
So we stopped discussion after a motion and a second before voting. I'm just confused by Erica's questions, and I want to say that I think the correct way that this should be handled is that we continue 23 and 20, and then once that is finished, we can consider Erica's motion. Not this motion, but she can remake the motion after we address 23 and 20, which we have already voted to do.
Thank you, Lane. Lori?
I understand the confusion, Lane, because it is confusing. However, when Erica made the motion, we allowed a second to happen. So that motion was actually on the table before the last motion, number 3 of option F on 23. So we have to, by parliamentary procedure, vote on her motion that she made before we even got to F, because it was on the table. If we don't do that, then we're out of sync, because we have a motion and a second that calls for us to take an actual vote. Does that make sense? But I understand there's a lot of confusion.
Okay, that does make sense. And then also Erica's motion was that we go back and consider everything and also disregard our prior change to number 23.
Nope, not quite. It was that we either consider all of them, including 20 and 23. So yes, consider all of them, including 20 or 23, or don't do it for any of them, including 20 or 23.
That's not a yes/no question, so I can't answer that. What would I be voting for if I vote yes, and what would I be voting for if I vote no? I'm really sorry, y'all.
Okay, so then let me restate it more so it's got a yes or no. So then the restatement would be that the motion is to hold the process consistent for all items, and that's a yes or no.
Travis, did you have a comment?
Mr. Chairman, I would reiterate one fact, that in a means of trying to stay consistent, we are highly inconsistent. And I'm not sure if this group has an acting parliamentarian. I'm not even sure if we're really bound by Robert's rules. But I do know that we're playing pretty loose here. Nonetheless, thank you for doing what you're doing, sir. I appreciate you.
Okay, so just to clarify, I know we're still kind of confused. So Erica's motion would undo what we voted on. I believe. Tana, do you have any discussion?
I just have a question, and I'm sorry, but now that the motion has kind of been restated, I feel like if we've already voted, we should probably negate the vote on Erica's motion and send out a new poll, because since the voting went up, it's kind of been reworded and changed a few times. For clarification, right? So maybe this poll that's going right now should be negated and a new one should go up based on exactly what Erica just said so that it is clear.
Travis?
Forgive me, I'm sorry, my hand should not be raised.
That's okay. So maybe before KSDE sends out this vote, Erica, if you would like to restate exactly what you want the vote to say, and then we will send out the poll from there.
Okay. It can say that all of the items will be open for additional motions, discussion, and voting, including 20 and 23. But all of them would be, in order to be in integrity on the process that we already agreed upon.
The motion is being typed on the screen for everybody to see.
Okay, Lane, do you have one final thing to say before we vote on this? Lane and Melanie?
Yeah. Brian and Ava in KSD, how would we go about, would this be, we go through one by one and say if we want to reopen it or not, or would we, is there any way we can clarify on that?
Okay, Melanie?
Assume that Lane will get an answer in a moment.
Lane,
I can answer that, Brian, if you want, or you can go ahead.
No,
I
go ahead,
think
Gabby.
from our perspective, we would need to go back through each item and determine if there was another motion that needed to be made. So we could dispense with the current motion and then go back to the top and see if any additional motions needed to be made by members on each item. That would be KSDE's initial reaction, but would welcome feedback from our chairs on that.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would agree with what Gabby says. Melanie, did you have a discussion item? Or sorry, Ava?
No, I was just saying, Melanie, you're good.
Okay.
Oh, I just want to be clear about both. I want to be clear about the way that this is written.
Melanie, I'm not sure if everyone is having the same experience, but your audio is extremely low on my end, but it could just be something with my computer.
No, me too. I can't hear her hardly.
Is this good or no? No. Okay.
Melanie's question is in the chat for everyone. Does this motion then undo the votes we've already taken on item 23? And either of our chairs are welcome to take that, or I can attempt an answer as well.
Gabby, what's your interpretation? My initial thoughts would be no, that this doesn't undo the votes there. This would just be simply looking at, do we want to reopen the remainder? Because I don't think it was in the scope of the motion to undo.
That would have been my response as well, since each of the items that have been voted on have reached a majority. I think those would stand.
Correct. That's my take as well. Thank you. Mr. Githens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To be clear for the members that are voting, could we have a what is it need for passage? Is it 51%? Is it simple majority? Could someone explain what the passage for this particular motion may be?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is 51%, and in our voting rules, abstentions do not count towards the total vote. So if 7 on the motions that have previously been done, an example would be on 23, option D, there were 25 voting members, but 2 abstained. So the total vote towards the majority is only 23.
So it's not about percentage, it's about those majority of members voting.
So it's still a 51% majority of those that are voting yes or no.
Yes or no.
So we just
not
subtract
total
the
votes.
abstains out of the total vote count.
Correct.
Thank you, Gabrielle.
We've explained that the abstentions, your vote's not counting as an abstention.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and vote on this motion, and it is already up on the screen. So we'll go ahead and get that poll. And as always, if you're having trouble, please let us know.
I believe our IT department is trying to clear the old poll out first. Okay, now you should be able to vote on the new motion as written.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do a last call for this motion. So be sure to get your vote in and let us know if you can't see the poll on your screen.
Travis, could you please send your vote to Peyton and Gabby via chat?
Travis, I did get your vote. Thank you for sending that to me.
Understood. Thank you.
Travis True, Gabby, did you get Travis True's vote?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think once we're ready, we'll go ahead and see what the poll is.
We have an additional no vote for 20 out of 23 voting no.
Okay. Thank you. So it looks like that motion did not pass. So we'll go ahead and go back to discussing on number 23 as before. And I'm not sure if I'll remember on the top of my head which one we were discussing on, but we'll go ahead and look back at that.
I believe that was item F, if I remember correctly.
Okay, is there any more discussion on item F? Which is to recommend districts allow parents to set stricter controls if desired on their students' school-issued device. Okay, if not, we'll go ahead and vote on that. So the poll will come up, and again, you're voting on whether districts recommend to allow parents to set stricter controls if desired on their student's school-issued device. Okay, we'll go ahead and do a last call on that vote, so be sure to let us know if you can't get your vote in at this time. It looks like that motion did pass. So we'll go ahead and discuss if there are any other motions that anybody would like to make on motion number 23.
Katie.
I'd like to also recommend option A, that recommends school districts utilize device management systems that allow parental controls to be put in place on district-owned devices. And I appreciate that my own district does that, and it is a very effective tool to allow parental control.
Okay, we have a motion by Katie for option A. Do we have a second? Constance, do you have a second on her motion?
I second that.
Okay, thank you, Constance. We have a motion and a second on option A. Do we have any discussion? Remember, please raise your hand. Kim.
I just have a clarifying question, Katie. I'm curious, does that mean, I like this motion as well, but I'm curious during the school day, are the parent controls only in place after the school day in your district, or is it during the school day as well?
In my district, it's only during the school day, and in my own thought process, this needs to go with other things like option B as well, or else it's not effective. In in my opinion, too, some of this goes along with the other motions about having parents opt out of taking them home. So it gives people some, if they want to allow their student or their child to have it at home, they can at least manage the device in the same way that a teacher could manage it at school.
Thank you.
Do we have any other discussion on this motion? Okay, we'll go ahead and pull up that poll then. And we are voting on whether or not to recommend school districts utilize device management systems that allow parental controls to be put in place on district-owned devices. Okay, we'll go ahead and do a last call on that motion as well. it looks like that motion did pass. So we'll go ahead and open up discussion again for number 23. Are there any other motions that any task force member would like to make at this time? Katie?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. I'd like to also recommend option B, that school districts work with parents to ensure they have full access to their child's device when it is home. And for me, the key part of this is working with parents, because some districts do have apps or whatever to control them, but if you don't provide parents with the information and even some training and education, they're not effective. So I think these two go together.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second, Kim?
I second it.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second on option B. We'll open that up for discussion.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open up that poll then as well. And it, oops.
I apologize. I believe Danny had his hand up, and I know it's hard to see.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Danny, go ahead, please.
All due respect, telling the parents here through this whole thing what they can do. They can do its recommendations. All they can do, and I respect your opinion, but the person and I just keep, like I said before, we're taking it away from being simple. It's not simple. We have all these controls, and the parents have the right on all this.
Danny, I think you're cutting in and out a little bit. Can you try that again?
What they can and what they can't do. And but it's just like, it's going to be a short meeting today. A short meeting. So I really struggle. Let's put everything in there except the local boards saying that they in their particular district. Put a bunch of stuff in place that's going to cost the taxpayer huge money. For instance, the tags. That could end up, if you take 400,000 students, that could be $4.8 million worth of tags that the school's doing. Is okay with that. Or if have a screen time home, so we think at home, and that could cost anything from $200 million to $400 million. Taxpayers spending time spending $200 million on medical carers. Actually, the patient would appreciate that $200. The other thing is too, now we put in, okay, so if the teacher is going to a certain restriction on their phone, and the kid turn them on if they're not doing it, they're supposed to remove them.
Okay, Danny, I do apologize. We were having a little bit of trouble hearing some of your audio, but I think we caught kind of the gist of what you were trying to say there, so I apologize. Any other discussion on this item?
Okay, we'll go ahead and bring up the poll then. And we are voting on option B, that we recommend school districts work with parents to ensure that they have full access to their child's device when it is at home. We'll go ahead and do a last call on this motion as well, so please raise your hand if you're having technical difficulties. Yes, Lane.
I just wanted to ask, number 20 is still open for additional recommendations, correct?
Correct.
Because we said that Erica's motion. Okay.
We will go to that very quickly, hopefully, once
Got
we
it.
get done with this one.
Okay.
Okay, so it looks like that motion did pass. Do we have any other motions to be made on number 23?
Okay, Amy? Amy, sorry.
Yeah, since I thought we were voting on this one earlier, I would like to make a motion that school districts incorporate programs that can consider how long students are on devices. I'll read it right off the page. Recommend school districts allow families full oversight of what their children are accessing on school-issued devices and for how long. That's along with the other ones that we've done.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Do we have a second on Amy's motion? Katie?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any discussion on this? We have a motion and a second. Amy?
My quick addition to this is that I think this is on par with all the other recommendations in number 23 that we've been discussing. But if I'm thinking about it from how it'll be written up in the report to the state board, I'd love for there to be a part about being able to monitor duration on devices, because overall time spent on devices is one of the important parts of this conversation.
Thank you. Any other discussion on that? Okay, last call for discussion. If no further discussion, we'll go ahead and put, oh, Danny, sorry.
Danny, we're still having issues with your microphone. I can feel free to give KSDE staff a call too if you need any help with your device.
Okay, any additional discussion? Okay, if no additional discussion, we'll go ahead and put this one to a vote. So we should see a poll on the screen very soon. And if you're having trouble voting, please let us know. Otherwise, submit your vote and we will have the results in a moment.
Can you please restate the motion one more time? I'm dealing with some weather events on my end and trying to pay attention to this at the same time. Can we restate the motion once more, please?
It was option C for parental oversight, recommend school districts allow families full oversight of what their children are accessing on the school-issued devices and for how long.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and it did look like that motion passed as well. So since there is nothing else to vote on with this motion, as option G would contradict what we've already voted on, we'll go ahead and move up to motion number 20 and see if anybody has any further motions to make with that one.
Okay, Lane, would you like to make a motion on number 20?
Yeah, question. Can I make A and C in the same motion?
Yes.
Okay.
If you so choose.
I recommend school districts host, I move that we recommend school districts host educational opportunities for parents on school-owned devices and related software, and that schools share information on parental controls that can be implemented on personal devices. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Lane has made a motion. Do we have a second on Lane's motion? Lori?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Do we have any discussion on this? Constance or? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands for discussion. Ava, are you?
Nope. So we're going to go ahead and vote on this motion. So what Lane proposed is that we recommend that, oh, and the vote's up, so you can read it, but yeah. But it is that we recommend that school districts host educational opportunities for parents on school-owned devices and related software, as well as that they share information on parental controls that can be implemented on personal devices. So we'll go ahead and do a last call on that one, and then we will see the results.
Okay, the results are on the screen, and we have a yes of 92%, no 4, and abstained 4%. So that looks like that passed. Thank you. Okay, it is just about 5:30. I sincerely want to tell everybody that I appreciate all the work that this committee has done. I know at times it is, we've differed on opinions, and but I sincerely appreciate all of the work that we've done, the conversations that we've had, and I believe this is all to better the educational experience for students in Kansas. So again, thank you sincerely.
Okay, I think with that, we're good to go. So thank you guys so much for your time, and have a happy Halloween.